Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's Technically Speaking Unwebinar. As you can already tell by a couple of us on screen, we are coming at you from different conferences and directions. So we're going to have a little bit of fun today with talking contact center, which is a bit of a new and unique topic to this series. If you've been on previous Technically Speaking, you have notice we've talked largely about video products and solutions, and we are changing gears into the audio side of the Jabra business today, specifically around AI in the contact center with EngageAI. So I'm going to shortly get things handed over to Vern, but until we get there, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. While we are onboarding a few more attendees, because I see you still filtering in, I am going to get this presentation loaded, and we're going to play our starting screen here. It's got music. So stand in awe a second of this. It's awesome. Now, with the bass and everything, we should all feel pretty pumped. It's time to really kick things into high gear. Today, of course, my name is Josh Blaylock. I'm hosting and kicking it off, but I'm not the main presenter. Thankfully, Vern, who is much more skilled and adept at this topic, is going to be jumping in and presenting on EngageAI. So we'll get over to that in just a moment. Before we do, housekeeping. Again, if you've been on one of these, you know what these are all about. But for those of you that are new, here's how we like to run these, and here's why we call it an unwebinar. The idea with unwebinar is that we don't want this to feel like you're just sitting back absorbing a lot of content, and albeit good content. We want you to be engaged. We want you to feel like it's less of the average webinar experience and more of a, I got on to learn something and talk to people and get to know them and ask my questions, and that's what this is. So with that, how we kind of approach that is we encourage you, if you're comfortable, to flip those cameras on so we can see your smiling faces. No pressure, but it's great to feel like we're having a face-to-face conversations. And the mics will be muted, but if you've got a question, you want to make a comment, you want to jump in there, just do the hand raise in Teams, and one of us will unmute you and hand the mic over to you, so to speak, so you can ask a question or chime in. And let's see. Also, aside from raising your hand to ask questions that way, we are going to be monitoring the chat throughout this, so that if you pop questions into the chat, we will do our best to answer them there if we can. I'm going to be really blunt, though. Vern is like the expert of this topic on the call, and I am nowhere near that. So likely we will stop Vern in his tracks and say, we've got a great question in the chat, and we'll jump into it there. Okay, the last little bit of housekeeping. As always, we're giving away awesome devices. And since we're talking contact center today, the audio side of that's going to be an Engage 55 decked headset. If you have not had the pleasure of having an Engage headset on your head, it is a life-changing experience in my book, because you don't even remember that it's there. It's light, it's comfortable. The security on it is next level. And for the contact center, this is the go-to. This is the go-to line of devices. And of course, the Panic S20 is the perfect combo with that to video enable the contact center, as is becoming more and more commonplace. And when you do video enable it, you want to do it right. You want to be represented well. So that is going to be an awesome giveaway. The way we do these, as always, we're not raffling them or giving them away on the call. We're going to take a look at our attendance report afterwards, and then we'll reach out to you on the email that you registered with. So keep an eye on your email to see if you happen to be the lucky winner after today's event. Thank you for being here. You are eligible to have received that. If you registered, that is cool. But if you're not here, you're not in the mix. So thanks for being here. Okay, that is our housekeeping. So the other bit of housekeeping I'm going to put out there really quick. I almost forgot this. We are going to be shaving about 10 minutes off of today's event. So you're getting an extra 10 minutes back at the end. We are, again, a couple of us are at events. We've got a couple commitments at those events, and so we're going to keep this focused into that 50-minute time frame. which means I should really stop jabbering so much and get this over to Vern really quickly here. So today's topic, we're going up beyond the amazing headsets that when you hear Jabra, you might think headsets, audio, premium, all those good things. We're going beyond that, talking about how we really bring the sizzle to the contact center with advanced AI capabilities. And one last slide before I stop sharing and turn it over to Vern. If you are not yet bookmarking the landing page for Technically Speaking, we forgive you, but here's your chance to rectify that. Hit that QR code, bookmark it. That way, as these things come up every month, you've got a chance to meet up with your friends at Jabra, have the conversations, bring the technical questions. You're not missing a beat on what we're doing. And this next one is going to be May 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And the last couple of months, we have scheduled these smack dab during events. I don't believe that is the case for May, so should be in good shape there. Okay, with that, Vern, please take the floor. I'm going to stop sharing. Go ahead and introduce yourself, your role, and I'm going to start manning the chat.
All righty. Well, nice to see everybody here. My name is Vern Fernandez, and I am the Senior Manager for Contact Center Alliances here at Jabra. Been here for 12 years now. Been in devices for 20 plus years. And what we're really going to do is lift the hood on what we're doing in the contact center. So, and there's going to be, I might break one of Josh's rules and present to you a little bit here, but I want you to stop me because we kind of have to tell this story first. So you can have a lot of questions, and after this, you're going to have a lot of questions, I have a feeling. So let me just show what we're doing, and please stop me. Please stop me. I'm at the Call and Contact Center Expo here in Las Vegas right now, but I originally hail from Santa Cruz, California.
I mean, how much more legit does a presentation on EngageAI be than coming from that? Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, I'm doing this all week, in this presentation, so you're getting it fresh. So when we take a look at this, I'm really going to be taking a look at a real-time tone-based sentiment analysis and the role of next generation headsets, right? And so let's just get started. So please stop me if you have questions, but historically, if you don't know Jabra just yet, we're about a 150-year-old company. And what I'm going to be focusing on is, we've got everything from hearing aids to, creating Bluetooth back in the day. And, we do headsets for truckers and, cameras through Josh and his video team. I'm going to be focusing on what we did in 2018, which was put chipsets inside of our devices to start giving you headset telemetry to track audio quality. Because today, everything depends on audio quality. And then I'm going to be focusing on EngageAI, which came out last year, which is tone-based sentiment analysis that doesn't depend on your voice. And I'm going to open that dashboard up for you as well. And I'll just show you that I'm actually running this as we speak. It's going to be measuring my tone of voice in real time, right? And I can make this a bit smaller and have it be a little avatar for me, coaching me. And when I'm sparkling here, that means my tone is good. Hopefully you're listening because my tone is good. So I'm going to open this up a little bit later on, but I'm going to first talk about how we got here, okay? Now, what are we trying to solve with EngageAI, okay? Some of what we're doing in AI. One, quality monitoring and coaching are needed for hybrid workers, and wherever the agents are going to be. Here, you can kind of see here, this agent's being coached that the placement of her microphone is wrong, and it might sound a little like this. See what I'm doing? It sounds a little tinnier until I drop it back down. The reason that is because there's actually algorithms working within my microphone. There's 3 different microphones in this particular microphone, understanding what's noise and what's not, okay? Now, this is important because if I sound like this, the bots trying to hear my voice to do any kind of AI are not going to hear it either. That brings me to the next point here of what we're trying to do. This always does this here, is we're trying to maximize these investments in AI that depend on voice. So many of you might be consuming things like Chat GPT or doing some sentiment analysis or translation apps speech to text call recording. That all depends on what's going on between these two people and the voice that it picks up. Both Josh and I are at conferences right now. I got people walking, behind me, and if you start to hear those false positives, it really screws all this up. See, the idea is that the customer calls in, does some self-service. There's going to be a chat bot or an IVR. And, if that helps that person, great. If not, you got to rely on our headset, right? Many people design a huge call center, and, video call center too, in some cases. $15 million call center, and then they leave it up to a $25 headset, that catches all the noise and stuff, right? That's like designing a Ferrari and essentially putting it on a spare tire to drive around it, right? We create the performance tires so that we can do things like AI, okay? Now, I'm going to show you a cute little video here, and I'm going to break down what the capabilities of our audio devices are. And when you take a look at this video, you're going to see something probably very, very familiar to you. But we're going to break this down in terms of time, okay, and how this affects the customer experience. So take a look at this.
Speaking to you using the microphone on my computer while my kids and the dog are making noise behind me. This happens a lot when I work from home. I have now switched to my EngageAI that has advanced noise cancelling for crystal clear calls. This means it doesn't matter how loud the kids and Buddy want to bark when I'm working from home. I'm always going to be able to communicate clearly and effectively.
Okay, just raise your hand in Teams if you've ever been through that. Just raise your hand. Now, there's tons of hands coming up, so that's good. So when we look at this, she's got her kids and dogs, and when she put that boom down, it took out the noise. We know how noise cancellation works, but it's more important now that she knows that it's working for her. Because if she didn't have that device, she would have apologized twice. She would have muted 3 or 4 times. She might have even taken the call, and she would have repeated herself for 15 seconds. And in the contact center world, time is money, right? So what tools can we give her AI-wise that give her the confidence to push forward? Because she's also trying to create data for all those apps that we were talking about previously, okay? Now, one of the things that we did was we did some studies with NICE, and we, took a look at what are the most accurate devices for transcription in those cases. And if you compare the headsets that she was using compared to, say, for instance, AirPods, if you're trying to collect any kind of info with this, it's not going to be good for the investments that you purchased, okay? So this is a little white paper that we can get to you afterwards if you want to take a look at kind of the science behind this. Now, Jabra, getting into AI, we offer 2 different types of call quality, or customer experience types of applications. The first one's called Engage Plus, which is meant to show call quality and, from our devices in relation to the entire call, because you have to have good data here to run our other CX tool, Jabra EngageAI, which I showed you a bit. So let's get into it. So the headsets we're designing now, they have data from them. So the same chipset in here. And do we have questions, Josh?
Yeah, Vern, I was just going to say really quick, we may just have lingering hand raises from your poll earlier, okay. But if there's any hands still raised,
you want to ask it?
Looks like we have no more hands raised. Okay.
Okay, good.
Proceed.
Cool. So the chipset that takes out the noise also delivers data. Now here, we can give you things like, what's the background noise in that area? Was it 44 decibels? Was it 58? Was it 68, 72? That's good to know because that can increase handle time in the call center. That could affect accuracy of the actual data that you're trying to produce, right? I actually have a customer using that metric alone to monitor 40,000 agents all over the world to see how, and these are outsourced agents, to see how loud those call centers are, to see if they're actually representing the voice of their brand properly. They'll actually determine whether or not you get more business from this customer in terms of hiring more agents to support them. Very powerful metric. Crosstalk and guidance, who's talking? Is there silence? Is there crosstalk? That's something that we can give. And the boom arm guidance. So if I am up here, I can be coached to bring it back down before this becomes an IT ticket, right? Because sometimes agents, they're sound like this the whole time, 20 minutes later, tech support says, move your boom down, and boom, the problem's solved, right? So if you have wireless, headsets, we can essentially tell you when you've walked too far away. So take the woman that was in there with her kids and dog and take a look at this widget. This widget is letting her know that her headset's actually doing the job. So don't worry about it. Don't stop. Don't waste those 15 seconds, because 15 seconds times 1,000 calls in a call center is a lot, okay? When this happens, it's a lot. Now, what we do with this is we create a little AI of our own. We call Engage Plus. These are all what's called detractors in a call. This breaks up data needed for AI, background noise, mic placement, and all this. And what we've done is we've created a little real-time coach for the agent to essentially say when the call's going wrong, when you're not transmitting the data that you need, or when you're just not sounding good, right? So here our little app is coaching you using AI, saying a long pause is detected, or it's going to say, maybe you're talking while muted, the customer has to remind you of that. Here it's going to say, it hears noise. This kid's a dog's, it's medium. We consider that medium, so don't worry about it. But then if it gets out of control, it might screen pop you. So this is AI working off of our devices to clean up data for AI, okay? The reason why I wanted to present this first is because, the headsets matter, right? And since we do all that, we want to make sure that you understand that there's a lot under the hood going on here. Now, when you take a look at our devices, you don't have to read all this. The only thing that you need to know is that these are the devices in the call center that have the chipset, and that these are the ones that don't. So now we love all these headsets, but to me, these we sell by the tens of the thousands. This is like the rotary phone of old, that you couldn't see, completely analog, nothing to show on a dashboard. This section here has all the data where I can do stuff and put it on a dashboard and check for call quality, okay? And as a result, we have third-party vendors taking that. And this is where it gets really kind of cool, because these folks can see everything between the SBC all the way through to the headset to find out where call quality is going wrong. To take a few by example, this is Versailles' actual depiction of how they use our data. You'll see that they collect data here from their platforms, from the cloud, the switches, and the wireless networks. And this entire right side is us. So where it used to be the phone connected to like an Avaya or Cisco switch, once you get rid of this, you got rid of a ringer and all the analytics. So what we do is we give that back, collect it all here, and put it in a single pane of glass. An example of a GUI that does that is Nectar. Here you'll see device telemetry at the bottom. This entire bottom section is ours. We score it at 82%. Up here, the SIP session scoring at a 55%, which means that the problem's not us. The packet loss is happening somewhere else. So technically speaking, if you're looking for the needle in the haystack, we can now start to find it and eliminate us or blame us for whatever that might be, right?
Hey, Vern.
Yeah.
I'm going to chime in with a question here that I missed in the chat. So thanks for directing me back to that, Parker. There was a question from Nick asking, can you alert the user if they say or like over and over?
Okay, so I know where you're going with that question in terms of speech analytics. So we don't technically do that, but when we get to our Engage AI portion, we'll let the person know that maybe your voice is flat, right? And maybe to boost your tone, because we're very tone based, but we don't do that based on words. So when we get to that part, word layering on top of speech to text. So hopefully that answers your questions for now, okay? Now, let's get to that, right? So here, I'm really making the point that you can see voice data here in all sorts of different scenarios. Opera is another one. There's a real-time coach here alerting the agent of what's going on and things like that. You can see in custom fields in Vern that we can pull information from our devices and tag it to a particular call, right? Point being that if you have a call and we can save those 10 seconds here, we have a really good ROI, you know, and this doesn't happen every call, we get that. But if we can prevent this in many calls, that's a big time savings. Now, let's get to the AI part for tone, okay? The reason why I wanted to show you all that is because this is kind of a lead up into having data to do things like sentiment analysis, because the tone of my voice, we measure about 6,000 things about my voice to understand how Vern feels, how the customer feels, right? And these are some of the widgets that the agent can see in terms of coaching, you know, because you had brought up some coaching. Great job keeping the tone up. Or you didn't have any long pauses in the last 10 calls. And I see Michelle raised her hand.
And then very quickly lowered it. I think it might have been a mistake. But Michelle,
Okay.
please chime in.
Okay. Or here, your tone might be slightly down. So there's some kind of measurements or great work. This is kind of like a pat on the back for the agent. I see Craig has a question.
Yeah, I was just curious if this is something that would work completely separately or could possibly piggyback on some of the similar tools within Microsoft Teams.
Yes, so actually I'm running it in Teams right now. So this instance of me running it starts and stops when I start and stop a Teams call. So you could use it for tech support, you could use it for inside sales, and this is keeping me green to make sure that I don't sound boring, right? And I pay attention to this, right? And so do a lot of support agents. Does that answer your question, Craig?
More or less, well, because Teams has a speech like, and what brought this up was you mentioned just now that your tool does not evaluate repetitive words and things like that. So I was curious if they would work together to be able to pick up where one falls short and vice versa.
Okay, yeah. So,
or if it's just completely separated as an additional tool just within the Jabra environment or in equipment.
Yeah, so if you can imagine, we came out with this in 2023. My job actually here at Jabra is to talk to the alliances and say, hey, this exists. Can we light it up during your calls? And once I started having these conversations with a Genesis or an Avaya or a Teams or whatever, people automatically start asking, can we open this up? So one, you know, we can see text as well. And can that run other portions of WFM, you know? So I'm going to get to that part. But yes, this is designed to layer on top. And by the way, this has nothing to do necessarily with the actual headset. So we can, as long as you're getting good data here, you can run this service called EngageAI. We have a couple data hooks in our headsets that reflect in this tool. But that's kind of where we're going with that, Craig. And I'll get into it. You'll kind of see where we're going. So this is what we're measuring. So here, most people that do speech analytics, they do it using text and bots and keywords. So here you have an agent saying, thanks for calling customer support. I'm John. How may I help you? But sometimes it's actually said like this.
Thank you for calling customer support. I'm John. How may I help you?
Right? So this guy kind of just showed up and it reflects in his voice, right? Or you might have, and in our tool, he's going to light up as gray. You might have a customer say, well, I want to thank your company for delivering outstanding service. but it might be actually said like this.
Well, I want to thank your company for delivering just outstanding service.
So the bot's going to miss that tone because he's not as happy as what the text might provide, okay? Here we have empathy. This is what we want to hear from our agent.
I'm so sorry about it. Could you tell me more about your problem?
So that's going to register green, kind of like how I'm registering green right now. Here you have a customer saying, well, you're misunderstanding everything I say. But it's actually said like this.
Well, you are misunderstanding everything that I say.
Okay, so that person is actually working with the agent, right? So when I'm showing this to my alliances, many of them see kind of the layer that we're trying to provide and they want to do an integration with us, right? So the ums and oohs and ahs and all that kind of stuff will still be picked up by them. But you're going to see at the very end of this app is located in Genesis App Foundry as an example, where we can start laying this on top of other apps within Genesis. Any questions on this? Because this is pretty key in terms of what we're trying to measure. Okay. Now, the way that it works is during the call, like even during my call, it's running real time. So here is a couple spots where other people spoke. Craig, this is probably you. Or actually, these are the 4 examples that I had, right? So that was given it to me in real time, okay? So when it actually works, you'll see it turning green or yellow depending on the sentiment. And as you can see, we're not using words, we're using light up bubbles, right? So from a security standpoint, that actually helps us out because we're not listening to words. So from a GDPR standpoint, we'll get to security and stuff. We do pretty well. We just answered a 700 question security gauntlet from Deutsche Telekom and passed. So that's good. Now this is important because the 2 KPIs that we're looking to provide to the market include advisor tone of voice, so the tone of my voice talking to you, and the actual customer sentiment as they respond, okay? Now, I'm going to play you this as well. I'm going to keep EngageAI open. This is going to be an example of how this tool could be a lifeguard for the agent. This agent's going to be doing her best, absolutely. And she's just going to get yelled at. You're going to see how it reacts, both in my example and actually real time in my EngageAI instance. So take a listen to this.
Thank you for calling Lunaya Energy Customer Services. You're speaking to Ellen. Can I start by taking your account number, please?
I want to speak to your manager.
Sure, that's no problem. But before I can transfer you over to them, I need to identify you on our systems. Would I be able to take your account number, please?
It's 12 13 78 90.
Thank you. Great. Is this Thomas Larson?
Yes, now put me through to your manager.
Can I ask you to give me a bit of a background about your problem? I'll be able to see if I can help you before I can transfer you.
Well, I think it's very unlikely you can help because my payment keeps going up and it doesn't reflect how much energy I actually use. Now, I spoke with your colleague Pete or whatever.
Okay, so he's ranting now, right? If I open up my tool, I can see that happened real time. This can create alerts, and the green is where the woman was talking, and the yellow is where he was angry. I can create a real-time alert for the supervisor to essentially barge in, I am the rep, and say, hey, do you need help now? Like stress is now. So it's real time, and it's notification, okay? Now, if I go back to this, there's a few outcomes that can happen with this call, okay? One is she might turn on from yellow to green. That's kind of what we want to see. And if she's good at that, then she's good at de-escalation. I'm going to take my angry chats and give it to her and pay her more to deal with it, right? There's an opportunity there for skill. 2, he may hang up, rate her a 1, which isn't fair because her tone is actually good. Maybe I would coach her to dip down a bit with him and bring him back up into tone, right? 3, if she takes 2 of those calls in a row and just gets beat up, she might just say, oh my God, is this job for me? And, the those of us who've done this job, there are a lot of people just crying in a corner asking themselves the meaning of life when they get beat up like this. So understanding when that happens real time is something that we can think, we think we could affect agent well-being, right? Now, this is 100% coverage of each call. It's independent assessment of each tone. There's a dashboard involved that we'll get to, and I'll show you. Our AI gets
Hey,
to
Vern,
move.
before we
go
move
ahead.
forward, we actually have a few questions that popped up in the
Perfect.
Q&A app there that I
Perfect.
wasn't monitoring. So thanks for letting me know about that, Rhoda. So let's do a little catch up on those, and then we'll push forward there. After
Cool.
I'm still getting over shuddering from the tone on that call. That was brutal. We got a question from George saying, are there any plans to bring the muting function of the Evolve 2 of bringing the boom arm up into the Engage family? So lift the boom arm up and mute ourselves.
Of the Evolve 2?
Bring the boom arm back down. Yeah.
Evolve 2. Okay. So if I go back to this chart here, the Engage series for us is really the first time we went into the foray of creating data, okay, for the headsets. And so I'll show you kind of what's available telemetry wise. And now you're going to the guts of my laptop here, and I'll show you exactly what I'm looking at. This real time here. So telemetry points here. If you look and see what's available by headset, right? Let me just get rid of this here. Here in the Engage series are kind of the telemetry points available, call duration, customer speaking, all this kind of stuff, right? When you're really looking for quality, you definitely want to go with Engage. If you compare that to the Evolve series, there's not as much data points for us to work off, right? Now we know that, we get that, but if you think about what we're really trying to start to do, we're starting to move from analog rotary phones, that kind of analog headset, into a world of digital headsets. So you're catching us at the beginning of this. The intention, from what I understand, is that we are looking to provide telemetry in many of our devices, if not all, in the future. That's not necessarily next year, but we know that a lot of you have multiple pieces of our portfolio there, right? So we are thinking about it, to answer your question.
Second question, can the AI also provide an audio cue like a tone or a mute on voice rather than just the text pop up, right?
Right. So it's all the alerts are going to happen here. The headset itself, you can choose, like I'm using a headset right now. If I wanted that's a little bit separate from us, right? So I can go into my headset here and create an audio cue when I'm actually muted. So that would be a function separate where I can go in here, and I think it is here around mute reminder. If I turn this on, that will bug me to unmute.
Awesome. Yes, it's possible. It's just in a different vein there, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then the third question, got George here. Can EngageAI detect, for example, frustration after starting a call on a good mood and after 30 minutes in troubleshooting, the rep tone changes? If so, are there any alerts or warnings?
Yeah, so here's what the supervisor will see. I'll show you some supervisor notifications that you'll start to see. So let's just say that that agent was getting beat up, right? In terms of tone, you'll start to see things like she's been talking to multiple frustrated customers in a row that might need support. And your question that you just asked, Josh, it'll say this person sounds more flat than usual. Consider to check in with them, right? And that's your cue to kind of say, okay, this person's kind of lighting up gray in my tool. So if I open up my tool, I can go to individual calls. Well, here this person got badged. That person was really energetic during that call. And I can open that up and see where she was. Like here in this call, she's green. And, the customer's kind of flat, and that's good. Flat is good. If you show up to work, can't blame you. But what we like to see is that the actual agent's engaged like this, right? I can look at another call like this one and see how this went as well. Here you can see some spaces in the call and things like that. And you can see at the top, we're measuring things like advisor tone, customer sentiment, interruptions per minute, long pauses and stuff like this. Now, I want to go, hopefully that answers the question. Josh, I wanted to show something else. Are we good with that question? Okay.
I think so. I've got one more. Once you're ready to show the other thing, I'll pop over to you.
Pop the question, and then we'll go to the
Actually,
next
yeah, because I think this is a really easy, quick one. Does this software, looking at here, does it work with the Evolve 2 series?
It does. So as long as you're getting, okay, so let me show you this slide. This is nice because I can hop around. What we're actually measuring, these are some of the things that we are measuring, right? Monotony, speaking rate, fast, slow interruptions, long pauses. Where you see the background noise and microphone position, you see that 2 right there? That's data points coming from my Engage 50 Mark II to show that we've got some data hooks in here that will show up. You know, so it is optimal that you use the headset that I'm using now, because that's, you know, why I'm using it. And my data points are going to show up in there. But if you wanted to use it with Evolve 2, it's going to make its decisions based purely on the tone of voice coming from that Evolve 2. Other questions? All right, good. So this is a pretty cool feature of this, in that we can do this with different languages. So I'm going to show you how EngageAI reacts and works with different languages. And when you do this in speech analytics, typically you have to choose a dictionary, if it's English or French or Spanish, and sometimes people talk in Spanglish, you know, and it kind of screws up how speech analytics works. And then you have localized accents and regional stuff. So what we're really trying to do is measure, you know, angry is angry, no matter where you're from. And nice is nice, no matter where you're from. And the AI will get to know your voice over about 100 calls to baseline you, and then kind of determine, you know, what the sentiment starts to look like for the advisor. For the customer, it's going to be really, it's just going to be on point. If the customer sounds mad, there's going to be alerts. So let's take a listen to this. I've got my EngageAI set to show this in Greek. First, this is a very angry soccer coach that's kind of speaking English and Greek, and I'm going to skip to where he gets angry. So take a look up to the left side of my widget here.
One people they give me present. I don't give present for the players.
Γιατί στη ζωή μου κανένας δεν μου κάνει ένα δώρο και ούτε εγώ κάνω δώρα στους παίχτες.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Καμιά φορά είναι καλό, καμιά φορά είναι κακό.
But the rules for me is very important.
Αλλά οι κανόνες είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικοί.
Because me no go happy, because I put Fragulakis and Daskalakis out and me going up, you know me is happy. No, but this is my job. After 2 weeks, and maybe because I know see.
Okay, so now in real time, you see him. Let's see, go back to this. You can see the anger in his voice right here. Okay, real time. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it happy in Mandarin. Okay, that's my next example for you. Here we go in Mandarin.
接下来2个单元呢，我想是很多男生女生都喜欢的。我们跟您谈珠宝，但是今天跟大家谈的珠宝呢是比较特别的坦桑蓝。今天呢，我们请到的是吉通珠宝的创办人 Stone 邵先生，中国地质大学，对吗？
Okay, that's enough there. And you know, the avatars, some people might be asking, you know, can you change how they look? And you can do that, right? So like I can change my profile and change how I look, put on a different shirt, change my hair or whatever. Oh no, I don't know if I like that. Just change it back to that. Maybe that's closer.
I mean, I think we might also want the link to that one YouTube video for our own use later on. That was kind of
right.
A question popped up while you're in the midst of that.
Sure.
Is EngageAI tuned to accept the boomless microphone feature of the Evolve 275 or Evolve 285, as that boom arm is secure in place and using the omnidirectional mics.
Okay, yeah. So this is like, to answer that question, you could use a competitive headset as well of ours, as long as the data is clean, right? We put a couple of those data.
Not that we would recommend that, but
not that we would recommend that, right? But to show you how separate it is from that. So if the noise cancellation is good enough from that of all 275 with the boom up, and you're in a quiet room and you don't have a lot of that false positive coming in, it's going to work, right? So yeah, answer is yeah. Couple more slides here, and then I can really open it up with the time that we have left. Security-wise, some people ask security-wise, oops. How does it work? So here you'll have, we need about 700 megabits, 700 megs of RAM to run this on the locally on the desktop. So we take the metadata and light it up green and yellow or whatever it is. We don't record your voice, not sent to the cloud, no transcription or speech to text, no customer data or identity, GDPR compliant with an Azure background. Everything's encrypted, and it starts and stops, with the start and stop of a call, no always on listening, things like that. So people have questions about that, so I want to address that as well too, okay? Now I'm gonna kind of reserve part of the last bit of this just to open it up and just have a little bit more discussion. If you want to see any examples, for those of you who are either consuming Genesis or reselling Genesis, you can find it in App Foundry, right, as an example. So I can easily go to, App Foundry and look up our app here, or it can be consumed through, Teams or AWS, Avaya, all that kind of stuff. So we have, like, for instance, this is a 30-day trial through Genesis App Foundry. We've got some trials of our own that are possible. Just give us a call. So I'm going to open it up for questions now and see what y'all think.
We got another question that popped up in the Q&A here, and from Craig. It says, how does the tonal evaluation work when hearing seemingly aggressive or quote unquote angry languages, even if not?
I got it. Yeah, the ones that throw their hands around when they talk, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's
the tone where the tone is throwing off the actual words, I guess.
I'm not calling anybody out here, but that's why we use 100 calls to evaluate your baseline, right, as an agent, so that it gets to know your voice. Because you just saw something in Greek, you just saw something in Mandarin. It's got to learn the tonal differences of those languages to begin with, right? So yeah, we can deal with that. Now, let me show one more thing before you show this, Josh. I'm going to steal this back. And if you really have some questions about this, right, if you go to our EngageAI website, for those of you who love white papers and all that, I'll show you where to find them if you want to do some recreational reading for a few hours, right? Essentially, when you get to our page here, you take a look at EngageAI, and what you're going to do is go to white papers and blog posts, right? And if you're that really technical person that wants to read about that, if you want white papers, I got white papers. If you want the research papers, that's about the least amount of marketing I could possibly think of right here. So if you want to dig in, we've got some videos about it as well. So I can take you to a video around kind of the science behind it, versus trying to answer every question about this, right? You can get an idea of the science about it and things like that just by going through all this stuff here, okay?
This is perfect. There was actually a question earlier, or a comment earlier about wanting access to the white paper. So that's where you go for that. There it is.
I'll put that link in chat while you start to finish up, Josh.
Yeah, no, and there's another question you got in chat here. Are auto updates able to be configured to install at a certain time, or are updates handled by a user kicking off the process?
Yeah, okay, so this will In terms of updating, that's kind of happening in the background real time, I would say. So whenever we have an EngageAI update, we'll see it as that it just kind of updated. You know, I'm gonna have to check and see if we can control the timing of that. Let me just check the settings on that, because there's a lot of.
While you're checking that,
yeah.
Yeah. While you're checking that, I'll just kind of. You got it. Okay.
Here, I can allow notifications here and whenever, and things like that. Go ahead.
I took back over sharing again, but so yeah, that should answer that question though, that you can do that. So this is our Q&A slide. You guys have been doing Q&A, which is amazing. You've had some good questions. That's really awesome. So at the same time, we got a QR code at the bottom of our Q&A slide to give us feedback and let us know what you thought of the session, helpfulness. Vern, should we tell Vern, thanks, we never want you to be on this again, or should Vern come back? Any other topics you might like to hear, definitely give us the feedback there. We're all about it. We want this to be the most value and usefulness that it possibly can be for you. And I love that we've had someone come off mute, ask a question. So many of you turned on cameras, and it's great to see your faces again. That's great. One quick last look in our Q&A here before we leave, make sure there's nothing else that pops in there. Okay, we got one more question here from George.
All right.
A rough idea, how many languages does EngageAI support? English, French, Spanish, perhaps Spanglish or others, or is it constantly learning through a smart engine?
It's constantly learning. It's over 100. I can't tell you the entire list, but it's all the majors for sure. So
just 100? That's all?
I don't know. That's a lot, especially with the complexity. Especially with the complexity of moving back and forth between languages, right? So, yeah. But yeah, you don't have to worry about a lot of languages out there. I was just at a meeting, with Genesis for a week, 2 weeks ago, and they were really going over the difficulty of dictionaries and setting it to English. And you got somebody from Montreal speaking French, and it screws it up. So things like that we can cover for her.
Awesome. There's some good question engagement here. And I think that's the end of our questions at this stage, though. We've got an awesome gift that's been placed in there. So I think you did a good job, Vern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I am going to go ahead and slide back over one more time. Snap that QR code if you can. And again, if you missed this slide earlier, make sure you bookmark the landing page for Technically Speaking. Get more of this stuff. Get into the nitty gritty. Ask those technical questions. And I hope that this was good for you all. This was awesome. As I mentioned earlier, Vern's got a conference to get back to, so we'll free you up right at that time. Again, thank you all for being here. Let us know the feedback on that last slide, and keep an eye on your emails in case you happen to be the lucky winner of a new Engage 55 and PanaCast 20 combo. All right.
All right, guys.
Thank you all. See you next month.
Bye.